Can the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant really return to Ukrainian control as a result of a peace agreement? Is Russia ready to withdraw from Enerhodar? Or, on the contrary, are they brazenly trying to sell us on some kind of joint control over the ZNPP together with the occupiers? What will happen to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, and why is Russia turning it into a military base? That's what we're talking about today. So please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and leave comments. Friends, this is very important for the growth of our community. And so as not to waste your time, let's get started right away. So, what happened? According to the reputable publication Politico, most of the negotiations in Abu Dhabi, which I discussed in detail in previous blogs, so please check those out if you haven't already, were focused on the economy and specifically on the issue of control over the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. No agreement was reached, but Moscow is allegedly in favor of Ukraine and Russia sharing the electricity generated by this plant. Do you hear that? Just think about it for a second, not returning the plant to Ukraine, but specifically sharing the energy produced. At the same time, it's unclear in what format this could even theoretically happen. Russia lets Ukraine into Enerhodar and grants unrestricted access to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Ukrainian specialists are present at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant together with the Russian occupiers, and in this way, the work is carried out and the energy is subsequently distributed. Or does Ukraine fully control the plant, but 50% of the electricity is supplied to meet Russian needs, or what? Or what? Well, it's absolutely unclear, illogical, and of course, unfair, because this is an attempt by the Russian side to legitimize their rights to our Ukrainian facility. And this simply resembles the behavior of an occupier, who, I don't know, has seized your home and then offers you to pay rent for your own kitchen. Well, how else could it be? So we just need to show the middle finger to any such proposals from Russian degenerates. But, friends, let's dig a little deeper. Let's recall the recent past. Because just in December of last year, literally about a month ago, President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke about another proposal from the Trump administration. At that time, as part of their so-called peace plan, the U.S. proposed, so to speak, to divide the management of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant between three countries: Ukraine, the United States of America, and the Russian Terrorist Federation. What did Zelensky say then? He said, "I believe this is unfair." He says that the plant is our property. It has been militarized by the Russians. It is in a dangerous state. There is no proper access to water or electricity there for cooling. It's unclear who will even be restoring the Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant, which was destroyed by the Russians and, by the way, without which the operation of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is in question. And that's true. So, if Zelensky rejected the Ukraine-USA-Russia option, then, as you can imagine, he will definitely reject the Ukraine-Russia 50-50 proposal as well. So this is absolutely logical. The Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is the sovereign property of Ukraine. According to the logic of law, the issue of control can be decided either exclusively by Ukraine or, in the extreme case, by Ukraine together with international partners, but without the participation of Russia, which has illegally occupied this facility. Of course, Russia will not simply leave this plant. But now comes the most interesting part. After all, back in September 2025, the Russian degenerate Putin was saying something completely different. Let's remind ourselves, friends, what exactly he said back then. During a meeting with Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico, he stated that he was open to cooperation at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in a trilateral format involving the US, Ukraine, and Russia. He said, "We can even work together as a threesome." Those are his words. So, a logical question arises: why did Moscow's position shift in just a few months from a trilateral format to simply let's split it between the two of us, excluding Trump and the US? There could be several explanations for this. First, it's a tactical maneuver because Putin might have known that Ukraine would most likely, yes, he might have known that Ukraine would reject the trilateral option, which is exactly what happened, by the way. And then he, gets a trump card like, look, the United States, we're ready to compromise with you, but Ukraine isn't. So this is an attempt to sow division, an attempt to portray Ukraine as the side that doesn't want peace. Secondly, it's an attempt at direct negotiations, this 50-50 format that, according to Politico, the Russians are supposedly proposing, excludes the United States as a mediator and guarantor. Just think about it. This is an attempt to drag Ukraine into direct bilateral agreements under pressure, where the stronger side, Russia, will dictate its terms. Does that suit us? Well, you already know the answer to that question. Thirdly, it's just simple propaganda. The very proposal to share creates the illusion for the global audience that Russia is the reasonable, constructive side, offering a fair distribution. This hides the main point, namely, they have seized someone else's property. That's what we need to remember first and foremost. Perhaps this is just one of many options that are on the table for discussion. And the Politico journalists suddenly just came out and reported exactly this option, which will definitely be, well, sensational, let's put it that way. We don't know all the details and specifics for sure. We're simply relying on the information that's available in the public domain. In any case, it doesn't change the essence. But the main question, friends, is actually not about this, but whether Russia is really going to make any concessions. And the answer here is not given to us by negotiations, not by Abu Dhabi, the United Arab Emirates, or anything like that, but by what is happening at the station itself right now. And to understand Russia's true intentions, you need to look not at the words of diplomats, but at the actions of the occupiers on the ground. And here, a very telling indicator is the recent investigation by BBC journalists. They secretly learned from employees who work at the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant what is happening there right now. By the way, these employees are still risking their lives. They were contacted secretly via messengers with disappearing messages in order to find out what is happening there now. They are currently working, there under the occupation authorities at the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant. And what did they say? The plant has been turned into a military base. Russian soldiers and equipment are constantly present on the territory, and their numbers keep increasing. The maintenance of the equipment is chaotic, where it is not carried out at all. They are simply crying out about the critical safety situation because the reactors require constant cooling, but the electrical substations are damaged. The water sources, ponds, and so on are being depleted to a dangerously low level. The same head of Energodom, Pavlo Kovtoniuk, says that, look, the consequences of an accident could be much worse than at Chernobyl, because here we could be talking about, say, the meltdown of several reactors at once. Plus, there is a technical impossibility because 4 power units at the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant use American-made Westinghouse fuel assemblies. The so-called Russian specialists from Rosatom don't know how to work with them. What are they planning to operate if, even if they launch the plant under their control, they technically won't be able to do it without Western assistance? What? The IAEA, by the way, also notes these problems. It's an absolutely impotent organization, but in the end, even IAEA representatives, who occasionally manage to get to the plant when they're allowed, maybe once a year, also report a deterioration in conditions due to the fighting and emphasize the critical need to repair the power lines. And now the main point, friends. Russia has already started building power lines from the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant toward the occupied territories. There's your answer. They have no intention of sharing, giving anything back, or allowing access. They're preparing the infrastructure so that at the first opportunity, they can connect the Ukrainian plant to their own grid and use its capacity for their own needs and to support the occupation economy. That's why proposals like sharing are just a diplomatic smokescreen to preserve their control and gain recognition of their right to seize. So let's sum up why this seemingly technical proposal is actually a red line for Ukraine. First, this is a matter of sovereignty, friends. To give up control would mean de facto recognizing the right of force and Russia's right to dispose of Ukrainian property. This would simply create a dangerous precedent. We will not agree to this. Let me say that right away. Second, this is about energy security because the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant is a key element of Ukraine's energy system. Allowing Russia to influence its operation would mean leaving our economy and our people as hostages of the enemy. We will not agree to this. Next, I'm already talking about things that may seem trivial, or rather about serious matters that have become commonplace. This is, well, for example, the environmental safety of Europe. As we have seen, under Russian control, the plant is deteriorating. It is simply turning into a time bomb. And the only way to guarantee safety is the complete return of the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant to the control of Ukraine and international institutions, including the IAEA, with the removal of all Russian degenerates, equipment, troops, and so on. Do you understand? Because sooner or later, it could blow up. Plus, look, real peace cannot be built on the legalization of looting. This division of extraction from the occupied territory, this is not peace. This is the consolidation of annexation. So when we hear such proposals, we must understand that this is a tool of pressure, a bluff, and a smokescreen. Ukraine's position must be clear. First, complete deoccupation, demilitarization of the station, the withdrawal of all Russian degenerates and murderers, and then restoration under full Ukrainian control with international assistance. And no joint management with the Russian Federation whatsoever. What do you think about this, France? What do you think? Why is Putin really making such a proposal? Well, look forward to your answers in the comments in the chat below this video. In the meantime, thank you for your attention and for watching until the end. Take care of yourselves, your family, and your loved ones. See you next time.